Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Pride Book Buffet at the Milwaukee Public Library. My name is Emily, or Miss Emily, and I use she and her pronouns.
Hello, everyone. My name is Connor, or Mr. Connor, and I use he and him pronouns.
So even though we're really bummed that we can't be with you in person today, we're still super excited to share lots of great LGBTQ plus books for kids. And, we're bummed that Pride festivities in Milwaukee have been canceled, but we're still excited to show our pride here today and our pride in our communities.
And special shout out to Marsha P. Johnson, a Black trans woman, and Sylvia Rivera, a Latina trans woman, and other leaders of the Stonewall riots that protested to ensure that the LGBTQ community throughout the country can be proud of who they are today.
And Connor and I usually work at the Central Library Children's Room at the big library downtown. But today, of course, we're joining you from our homes. And without further ado, let's talk about some awesome LGBTQ plus children's books. Mr. Connor, do you want to start up?
Great, yes. So here I have Sewing a Rainbow, the story of Gilbert Baker and the Rainbow Flag. It's by Gail E. Pittman and illustrated by Holly Clifton Brown. It has this beautiful sparkly cover, which I love, and has awesome illustrations. We see Gilbert Baker as a child and kind of like him growing up and discovering himself and where he fits in his family. And once he moves to San Francisco, he has a much better time being a gay man, and he then creates, it's the story of how the rainbow flag is created that the LGBTQ community stands by today. So I love this book because it has a lot of history in it, and it also has beautiful illustrations like this.
Nice. Cool. I also have a picture book to share to get us going here. This is A Plan for Pops, and it's by Heather Smith, is the author, and Brooke Kerrigan is the illustrator. So this is the story of Lou right here, and Lou goes to visit their grandparents, who are two gay men. Granddad and Pops are their names, and they're just completely opposite characters, but that's really where the love comes in, and they're just so fun. So Granddad right here is super serious. When they go to the library together, he does a bunch of research and figures out how to make things, whereas Pops right here is not so serious. And they go to the library, he listens to his loud rock and roll music on his headphones. And so Lou just has such a fun visit with them because they're such opposites, but they're both so warm and loving. But as the story goes on, Pops right here, and you can see he's using a cane, he starts to not feel so well, and walking becomes harder and harder, and he ends up in the hospital, which sometimes happens, of course, with grandparents. And it's really hard for Granddad and Lou without Pops around. When they're eating their spicy food for dinner, they can't feel the zing anymore, is what they say. Life just isn't the same. So they devise a plan for how to get Pops back and feeling better, and the family feeling good again. I love this book because it celebrates and honors our LGBTQ plus elders, which is super important. It shows just how important every person is in a family to really make it run smoothly and feel good. And I love that Lou's grandparents have the 3 Ps that they say will get them through life. And I feel like this really sums up the community and is wonderful for all of us. So the 3 Ps are perseverance, persistence, and patience. So I just love that. It's just such a real book about families and how to get through hard times together. A Plan for Pops.
Awesome. I have another picture book here called When Aiden Became a Brother, and it's by Kyle Lukoff and illustrated by Kailani Juanita. And this is the story of Aiden and how they transitioned and how they discussed their transition with their family. Aiden was born female, but transitioned to male. And he's got a super wonderful and supportive family behind him. And the mama here, she's expecting a new little one into the family. And so Aiden takes responsibility in helping his family develop the language and the skills to help foster this little one into a world without gender expectations. And I love this story because it talks about gender in such a natural way, and it's really, really friendly for kiddos who are new to that topic.
Cool. I have yet another picture book. We're kind of aging up as we go. I bet you're suspecting that now. This is a nonfiction picture book. So a great book for learning for very young children, and it's another book about gender identity. It's called It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity. Beautiful cover there, and I'll show a few illustrations in a moment. So it's written by Teresa Thorne and illustrated by Noah Grigney. So again, this is a nonfiction book that really explores gender identity and what it means to move beyond the binary of just male and females. Maybe a kiddo doesn't feel like one or the other, maybe they feel like both. So it explores what it means to be transgender, gender fluid, non-binary, and so many more things. And it really gives name to what those identities are and gives us vocabulary for children to learn and parents to learn together. And so there's a bunch of different kiddos here who identify all along that gender spectrum that we meet. And I just want to show some of the pictures because they're just so beautiful. Just warm colors, smiling faces, really shows a feeling of love and support among the community. And a lot of, again, gender diversity, but also body diversity and racial and ethnic diversity. So I just love it. And I'll show you like this big spread of the community. I'll kind of pan it through so you can see everyone. So again, it really gives grown-ups and children a way to discuss this topic as they explore their own identities. And then for grown-ups in the back, there is more back matter with additional resources, so websites and articles and further reading. And another really important thing to know about this book and some of the books that we've already been highlighting here today is that it's an own voices book. And that's a kind of a phrase you might have heard before, maybe not. And it means that books that are written or illustrated or stories that are told by people who actually belong to the community that they're exploring and depicting. And so this is definitely an own voices book, which when we can, we should read books written and illustrated by folks within that community.
Awesome. Our next book is actually a middle grade nonfiction book called Transgender Role Models and Pioneers by Barbara Penne. And you can access this book on Overdrive, which is one of our digital services that we offer through the library. And this is actually an anthology of notable figures and pioneers in the trans community. So there are transgender people such as Laverne Cox, Marsha P. Johnson, who we discussed earlier, Sylvia Riviera, Jazz Jennings, Caitlyn Jenner, and it really tells their story and what they're interested in now. As I was reading through some of this, I found their journey to find themselves both inspiring and realistic. So it was a really great takeaway to read this.
Cool. My next book, kind of shifting gears, is a middle grade novel. It's called The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James, and it's by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the story of Sunny St. James. She's a middle school girl who, when the story begins, is going through a lot. She has just had a heart transplant, so she's dealing with health issues. The story starts and she says, I think I'm going to die. So after she doesn't die and she's feeling better and on the mend, she evaluates her young life and she thinks, oh man, I need to have more fun in my life, have more adventures, and hashtag relatable for probably middle schoolers, I need to be kissed. I need to get that first kiss. So that's one of her missions for the summer. And as she goes along with that mission, she starts to think, I don't know anymore that I want to kiss a boy. And then she meets her new best friend on the beach, super cool girl named Quinn Rios Rivera. And after she meets Quinn, who is super cool, she starts to think, maybe I want to kiss girls and maybe I want to kiss Quinn. So it's just a coming of age story, a little bit of a burgeoning romance. And Sunny St. James is just such a relatable character who's struggling with so much at home personally, but also dealing with like real kid stuff of trying to make friends, trying to figure out who she is, and trying to score that first kiss before the summer is out. So it's just such a great book that's weighty and fun at the same time.
Awesome. Along with coming of age stories, I have Hurricane Child by Karen Callender. And this is the story of Caroline, who was born on the day of a hurricane. And in her community, that is considered bad luck. And she's definitely feeling that. She is at school and she feels like she doesn't have anyone that she clicks with really. And unfortunately, her mother actually leaves her around that same time in middle school where she feels really alone. So both at school and at home, she's very alone, trying to find someone to connect with. That all changes when a new girl comes to school named Kalinda. And Caroline and Kalinda team up to find Caroline's mother. And as they go through their journey of finding her mother, they really start to bond in more than just a friend way. So that is Hurricane Child.
My next book is, again, another middle grade novel. It's called, let me show you the cover here. It's called Zenobia July, and it's by Lisa Bunker. So this is Zenobia, or Zen, how she's known, and she's in middle school, and she's a new kid. She's struggling in this new town, new school, trying to make new friends. In her home life, things are a real struggle. Both of her parents have passed on, so she's living with relatives. So lots of personal struggle and then school struggle. And she's trying to feel comfortable in her own skin as a transgender girl. And this is going to be the first year at school that she's just going to really try to be herself. So she does start to make friends, and they're just such a fun ragtag group of like outsiders. You know, they're not the cool kids, they're not the popular kids, but they're her kids. And they're just such a great, you know, array of kiddos on the LGBTQ spectrum. There's folks who are immigrants. So just kids who are sometimes branded as outsiders, but they're Zen's people. And so Zen's starting to feel good and confident, but then suddenly, really terrible, somebody hacks into the school website and starts posting just terrible, hateful memes on the website, including transphobic memes. So it's scary, it's upsetting, it feels really personal to Zen and Zen's friends. But with Zen's support system of friends and family that she's living with, and then also her skills that she's starting to develop as a hacker herself, she's really good at computer stuff, she might just be able to take down that nasty troll and kind of score a win for herself and her community. So again, really relatable characters, really relatable middle school sort of problems, and a kiddo just really coming into their own and finding their own power in their own community.
Great. Our next book is another book that you can find on Overdrive through the library, and it's called The Best at It by Malik Pakoli. And this is the story of Rul Kapoor, who's a gay Indian American boy living in small town Midwest Indiana, which presents its own challenges. And he takes the advice from his grandfather to find something and be the best at it. And Raul is desperately searching for something to be good at, so he's trying all these different things. Meanwhile, he's discovering himself and how he identifies as a gay Indian American, and finding friends that support him, and brushing off the bullies that might pick on him. So that is The Best of It by Malik Pakoli.
Cool, and for my final book is another middle grade fiction. This is called Rick by Alex Gino. And Rick, the title character, is a middle school kid, kind of your typical middle school boy. He's a little shy and awkward, but at least he has his best friend, Jeff. They like to play violent video games together, prank one another, tell jokes. But Rick is starting to feel like Jeff might actually be a bully. So Jeff talks about girls' bodies in ways that makes Rick feel uncomfortable. Jeff makes fun of gay kids at school. And Jeff makes fun of Rick in ways that are just not friendly teasing. So Rick is starting to like see his friend in a new light as he gets a little bit older. And at the same time, he starts to go to a school club called the Rainbow Spectrum Club for LGBTQ kids. And there he's seeing like super smart kids who are very supportive of one another. And I mean, those are kids that Jeff would make so much fun of. And if he knew Rick was at this club, he'd, you know, be in trouble. He'd really hear some stuff about it. But Rick just feels so supportive there. And Rick doesn't know, you know, where he might be on the spectrum or if he even is. He's starting to think maybe he doesn't have romantic feelings for anybody, you know, girls, boys, or anybody else. But he can explore that safely in this club. So he's making these new friends. He's starting to see his old friends in a not so great light. It's a great middle school book that just really shows what it's like to try to figure out who you are, who your real friends are, who you want to be as you grow up. And probably most importantly for all of us, like, do you have what it takes, the bravery to stand up for what's right, even if it feels like the bullies might turn against you when you do that. So just one more important note about this book. It's an Own Voices book. Alex, Gino, you might know their previous book was called George from a few years ago. George was about a transgender girl. And George is a book that for the past few years since it came out has been almost always #1 most banned, challenged, or relocated books in school libraries, public libraries. So that's a book that has been just super unfairly targeted because it is about transgender people. And I loved that book. I love Rick. I like this author. And this book, unfortunately, I don't have the print copy to show you today, but it is available on Hoopla as an audiobook. And that's how I read it. And I love listening to audiobooks and getting that like authentic voice. And it's super authentic here because the author, Alex Gino, reads it. So that's really cool.
Awesome. And you can find more LGBTQ children's titles on our new children's page at mpl.org/kids. And I also recommend following the Stonewall Book Award winners and nominees, sponsored by the American Library Association.
Great, those are great resources. And then also, if you want to get your hands on any of the books that we talked about here today, we hope you want to keep reading these. Please check our website for information about how to request materials for curbside pickup, which is now available at some library locations. You can also check, as we've been mentioning, some of our digital collections that are available online through Overdrive or Libby, kind of the same thing with different names, or Hoopla. So that's how Mr. Connor and I read a lot of these books ourselves as we're here safer at home, and how you might be able to find them as well. And then also just check our website and our social media for information about this and other amazing programs that we're offering for kids and their families.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you have a great day and a great Pride Month.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Pride, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.